Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. What a beautiful world this will be. What a glorious time to be free. What a beautiful world this will be. What a glorious time to be free. What a beautiful world this will be. What a glorious time to be free. What a beautiful world this will be. What a glorious time to be free. Well, all right, here we are back again for another one of our hopefully more regular get-togethers here on Monday night. Have you been taking something to make you more regular?
No comment.
Okay. Well, I don't know why that thought popped into my head. Probably it's your fault because, you know, I've been exposed to your brand of humor now for how long has it been?
That's what I want to know. How long has this show been on? Like 4 years?
How long has this been going on?
So we're gonna keep doing this till we do it the right way.
Well,
That might take another 10 years.
or something. So I'm trying to figure out this Facebook stuff. I'm not getting anything for some reason. Let's see here. What is going on with Facebook? Oh, there we are. Look at that. My goodness. Hey, there's Marie. So we're officially underway.
Oh, if Marie's on, you could start.
We can start now. Exactly. I don't know. Sometimes this technology gets a little flaky, but then again, so are we. But I think I'm on the right program here. Yeah. Let me just see here for a second. Which one are we on? It won't tell me, huh? Son of a gun. Oh well.
Maybe you're on Seinfeld.
I don't know. Yeah, it looks like we're okay. Just I'm not showing anybody on, even though Marie is watching with us. It doesn't show me that anybody's actually watching right now.
Because Marie watches in the spirit. She doesn't watch through.
Oh.
That's from Me Immortal.
All right. So Marie, you are incognito apparently. But that's all right. We're doing okay.
Marie watches from heavenly realms and high places. So she doesn't need the internet.
There you go. Well, now it's showing me that she is definitely on with us. So, but there's nobody else. We could actually just have a conversation with Marie.
Oh, wow.
Oh my goodness. Well, listen, you have a pretty interesting topic for us to talk about tonight. And so maybe without any further ado, we should probably start talking about that topic, shouldn't we?
Okay.
You're easy. There we go. But this Facebook thing is really kind of flaking out tonight. I'm not sure why, but it is. Anyway, here we are, and there you are. So thank you for watching.
On Facebook, right? The feed is on Facebook.
It appears to be, yeah, but it just seems like it's not really tracking really well. We have one viewer on Facebook, rather on YouTube. So I don't know who you are, but thank you for watching. Anyway, tonight's topic is, I think, an appropriate one, as our economy here in the U.S. is slowly on the rebound. We've really made a lot of progress over this past year, at least if you go by the stock market. But we're going to talk about the spirit of poverty and how to overcome that. And you apparently are quite the expert.
Yeah, here's what I figured out. I have enough money to last till the end of the year as long as I don't buy anything.
Perfect. See, I knew that you'd have...
I'm an expert on the money stuff.
I knew you'd have a plan for our watchers, our viewers. that would, that they could take to the bank, literally. I'm telling you what,
Well, I've been thinking about this, and I figured out that two can live as cheaply as one, but for half as long.
Okay, well, that works too,
That's it. Now we could go home. Those are all my words of wisdom.
Oh, all right. Well, I mean, I'll try to avoid the usual one-liners about how I used to be so poor I couldn't pay attention, but well,
I
I'll
know. I heard you were so poor. Even the mice in your house went on welfare. There was no food there.
Oh my gosh, it was horrible. It was horrible. Absolutely. So let's launch into this thing before we lose more of our audience. So what's your how do you want to start this conversation here about prosperity and poverty? And
well, what I wanted to focus on was the poverty mentality.
Okay.
So we could go into a poverty spirit.
Sure.
Which means that poverty doesn't always have to do with how much money you have.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it has to do with your mindset and how you manage money.
True.
For example, I see people with hardly any money, and here in New York City, you go to any candy store, and you see people, with very limited income buying lottery tickets and putting their money into lotto.
Yeah.
Things like that, $1 billion to one, maybe hope one day. If they took that same $30 and put it away, every week, that's over $1,000 a year, to start moving towards something.
Yep.
So I think people would inherit tremendous amounts of money that disappears like into thin air.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, something that I always go back to is something that Chris Valentin said, and I think he just wrote a book about wealth, but he distinguishes the difference between riches and wealth.
Right.
Riches has to do with resources coming to me. Wealth has to do with my ability to manage it.
Okay.
So the first thing I wanted to say about the poverty mindset is the mindset that if I get money, I didn't have it before, so it doesn't matter what I do with it. It's just found money, and it's okay if I waste it.
Mm-hmm.
And not think, well, maybe this is money I can invest into my kids' college or into their future, or I could start saving it as a down payment for a house.
Right.
Instead, money can just pass through your hand. And, on the other hand, I've known a lot of people who grew up poor and they knew how to manage money, and they would take the little and it would amount to something. They learn how to give, how to save, how to wisely manage the money. People, who at one point had no money, and all of a sudden, they're doing very well.
Mm-hmm.
Not because all this money came in, but because we learned how to manage it. And the poverty mindset is easy come, easy go.
Yeah.
I didn't come with it, so if I lose it, so what?
Yeah. Well, that's true. Absolutely true. I think maybe, one of the things that people don't think much about is just, is poverty just something you have to accept? Is it just life? You're either born rich or you're born not rich, and that's why, folks that don't consider themselves to be rich, they're just going to try to enjoy whatever money comes their way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a lot of it's going to be a get rich scheme.
Yeah.
I'm going to play the lottery. I'm going to go to Atlantic City or wherever, and I'm going to gamble the money. And I've seen people win big. Mm-hmm. They go to gamble. Yeah. All of a sudden they win big. The next thing thing you know, well, now I got to get more money, and they gamble it all right back again.
Yep, that's true.
Instead of saying, wow, look at this money. How can I wisely use it? You know, who can I give to? Who, you know, what can I save?
Yeah.
What can I invest my resources in?
Yep. Right. And that's, you know, again, because, you know, that the idea behind the poverty spirit really is, it's how you view yourself and how you view your life, how you view the kind of God that we serve. I mean, obviously we're coming at this from, you know, a Christian faith-based relationship with God perspective. And so whatever kinds of understandings that are out there in the world where people, you know, are, as you say, just being, you know, irresponsible, well, that is an aspect of it. But I think what we want to touch on tonight, as much as we can, is what are the characteristics of this mindset, this spirit of poverty that has really been systemic, I think, in the body of Christ for generations, where it was almost seen as a sign of spirituality to be poor, you know, to not have much in the way of material goods. And so that idea, you know, has come down through the generations. And so when people are presented with opportunities to increase their, you know, finances, their whatever resources, you know, that they have available, the opportunity to increase that is often not pursued because they have a poverty mentality. And that's really, I think, what we're wanting to focus on, if you know what I'm saying?
Well, in terms of biblically, it's true. In the past, there were people who took vows of poverty.
Sure.
You know, in other words, I'm not going to be able to relate to the poor unless I'm poor.
Right.
So they would take a vow that they would have nothing, which really would be the exact opposite. Because if you're going among the poor, you want to say, here's how I did it.
Yeah.
You know, just as if you have a marriage group.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't know anything about, you have no experience with marriage. It's not the same as if you could say, use my marriage as an example. Here's how to have a successful marriage. Yep. It's the same thing financially. But there seem to be spiritually in the church two extremes. Yeah. One is that money is evil and we don't want it, and you know, and there's something to be avoided at all costs. The other extreme is, well, Jesus died to make you rich. And, you know, you take an hour offering every service.
Well, no, that would be Jesus died to make the pastor rich.
Yeah, but it's presented in that way. Well,
I know.
You give, now you're going to be rich too, and you're going to get a bigger car and a bigger house.
Yeah,
and
of course.
See, the balance is that, you know what Heidi Baker always said, you know, that there'll always be more than enough, you know.
Yeah,
but sure. It's neither extreme, because, and there are people who are called to be extremely wealthy, but those people God can trust. Yeah. People who have proven to be wise managers. Yep. Because the average pastor, you give them $10 million. The next thing you know, there's going to be a giant building there with all kinds of elaborate designs. Yeah, it's crazy. But I think that, you know, one of the, if not the most prevalent characteristic of a poverty mentality is an abiding fear that you're not going to have enough, that you're always going to be coming up short, that, you know, it's just this anxiety that you have concerning, will I have enough for, you know, my rent, my food, my clothing, all the necessities of life. And, you know, a lot of folks live under that kind of a mentality, under that kind of a fear-based existence. And that's one of the biggest signs of a poverty spirit, is having that kind of a fear. And I mean, I've dealt with that. I'm sure you have as well. not too long ago.
Oh, you mean like yesterday?
Like this morning.
Oh, this morning. Yeah.
That's true. Again, the idea is to trust God as the provider, not myself, not the.
Yeah.
We co-labor with God. It's not that I'm going to sit and wait for the money to fall from the sky like a lot of people do.
Right.
There's people, they say, I'm going into ministry.
Yeah.
And no money's coming, but they're just going to sit and wait and wait. Well, a check's coming in the mail.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting for God's timing and to co-work labor with God and to get strategies and wisdom on how to get finances.
Yeah, it's true. So, I mean, I just love how, Jesus brings all this out, in Matthew 6, where he's talking about how we ought not to have, the fears over our needs being met. And one of the things that I learned a number of years ago was that being concerned or worried or anxious about God meeting my needs, well, that's like kindergarten stuff. It's supposed to be kindergarten stuff for us in terms of our growth level. And so, that's like the first thing that we've got to learn is that he's a good daddy who always provides for his kids. And so my journey of learning to overcome a poverty spirit, that's where it really started. I left a decent paying job back in the 80s in order to go work in ministry. I went to work for a Christian radio station and took, a 50% pay cut. And that was a huge step of faith for my wife and I and our two little girls. And, we sweated through some of those days, but it really helped me to kind of get rid of that fear thing. So when I lost a lot of my business in the 90s, I had to work through that again because, wow, there goes all the money I was making. You know what I mean? So we go through these things in life where, God is really using our circumstances to challenge us about whether we believe that he will provide. And man, once you get that settled, oh man, the freedom is just unreal. You know what I mean?
So one of the issues is that when God does provide, the scripture says that you ask and you get it, and then you waste what you did get, and then you're not going to get it again. So to me, the issue of, like you said, that's the primary issue, your expectation in terms of who God is and who I am to God.
Yeah, sure.
It's the number one. The number two is, am I a wise manager of what I do get?
Yep.
Just like I was saying, in the beginning, I see people get big windfall. I'm talking about tens of thousands of dollars in Christians, and it's all gone.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
Easy. It came easy. It went easy. And God was giving you that money to steward it and ask him, well, what do you want me to do with it?
Yep. Well, it's interesting because those who were with us Friday night at our prophetic retreat, which, by the way, was pretty darn good, I think. We had a good time.
Especially with the part where you were speaking, right?
Oh, stop. I was not fishing for a compliment. Stop it.
You wasn't?
No, I wasn't, I promise. But no, I was going to reference something that Roger Fields brought out, in his session Friday night, which I was like, wow, thank you for saying that, brother. Because he was referencing the proverb that many of us have proclaimed and declared and prayed, that the wealth of the wicked or the wealth of the world is stored up for the righteous. And I don't know about you, but I went through a whole season of just, declaring that at least once a week, if not more. And, just all of that. And I believe it. I'm not, negating any of that. I truly believe that that is something that the Father wants to do for us. But what Roger brought out was, I think, was amazing. Is like, why would he do that if we haven't made any preparation in our own lives with what we're going to do with those resources. And, God really smacked me about that a number of years ago. And so I've got a pretty detailed plan in place so that when this happens, when these finances that have been locked away from us in the world, when they finally get released for kingdom purposes, man, I know exactly what I'm going to do to steward that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I am so grateful to God that he gave me the insight to begin to do that a few years ago so that we're ready. It's like, bam, 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 bam. This is what's going to happen. The moment that money hits, I already know where it's going to go, how we're going to invest it, what we're going to do with it. So I feel like that's a huge, huge issue that anyone who believes that, yeah, I want to be part of that wealth transfer, make some plans now. What does God want you to do with that money? Do you know now? Have you figured that out? I think until we do that, we can't really expect him, to entrust us with finances that he means to be used for his purposes and glory. You know what I mean?
And don't forget, when it comes, 30% belongs to your shareholders. And I'm a big shareholder in your company.
Oh, is that a fact? Okay.
In fact, you have my PayPal, right? All the information.
I do. I just had no idea you were tripling my tithe.
Oh.
Well, we'll see how that works. But no,
I think there are certain people who are gifted and anointed in that.
Mm-hmm.
And there are other people. Like, for example, when it comes to finances, that's not my passion.
Right.
I'm not saying having enough money is not my passion, but what I'm saying is, that's not something I get all excited about.
Sure.
I get excited about having enough money to do what I'm called to do.
Yep.
Where there are other people, like you're saying, like you,
mm-hmm.
Where you have the experience, the wisdom, and the foresight and the management skills, so that if God put it into your hands,
yeah,
you would know what to do with it. If he gave it to me, well, that's not my place in the body. That's not my gifting. My place is to have more than enough for my calling and my vision.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to manage money that's going to go throughout the body and touch the nations and build business.
Right.
That's just not, I don't see that as my calling. So I believe there are certain people, on that high level that God could really trust. And like I said before, most pastors, if they get tens of thousands of dollars,
mm-hmm.
bigger buildings,
yeah,
more programs.
Yeah.
Where other people might have a vision to eradicate, thirst and hunger on the earth, and
yeah. Sure.
A plan not just for my ministry and all the billions is to build my ministry.
Yeah.
But I think every believer, though, needs to have a plan for at least for their own life and for their own what God has for them,
mm-hmm.
and so that if money did come in, even if they're not one of those called like you are to, to be a blessing to the wider body and even to the nation,
mm-hmm.
at least have a plan for my life. Well, here's what I would do,
Right.
I have a college fund. Here's the amount of money, a good portion I want to give to missions.
Yeah.
Or whatever that means to someone.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the scriptures also say that the righteous should leave an inheritance to their children's children, so we're talking, a generational transfer or having something in place that will be a blessing beyond just our life. And that's another, I think, aspect of breaking free from a poverty spirit. Because when you have a poverty spirit, you can't see past your next paycheck or the next rent payment or the next grocery bill, whatever it might be. Those with a poverty spirit are only able to see their current conditions and how are they going to make it to the next, whatever the next deadline happens to be. And, that lifestyle, it's so difficult to be able to look beyond and get a sense of, well, what is the future? What does God have for me? And that's why we've got to come out of that place of being afraid, being anxious, being worried, as Jesus so clearly lays out for us in Matthew 6, so that we can put the stress of that lifestyle behind us. Walking in faith with God is impossible if you're constantly worrying every day about whether you're going to have enough or whether what you have is going to run out. Right? That's the other side of it. Oh, I'm not going to have enough for my retirement. I'm not going to have enough for whatever, So that's an important thing. We are called to be stewards. And honestly, I love what Jesus taught us in Matthew 25 when he gave us that awesome parable about the guy that handed out the money. He handed out, where is it here? Matthew 25, right? He gives one guy 5, he gives another 2, gives another 1, and says, now go do business. Go do something with what I gave you. And of course, we know that 2 of them did well, and the other guy just was like, who knows, right? He was too scared. He was too timid.
He did nothing.
Yeah.
He buried it, which means he did nothing with it. There's no fruit. No fruit,
exactly. So it's pretty clear that the Lord is looking for us to be good stewards, good managers of the resources that he's either given us now or wants to give us. But it's got to start with what we have, right? I mean, to whom much is given, much is required, but also what you do with the little that you start with is what qualifies us to be entrusted with the more, right? And so that's a huge mental shift that a lot of people have to start coming to grips with to get out of that small-minded thinking of fear and worry and anxiety over their personal resources. If you can't get past that, that's going to be tough to go beyond into whatever else the Lord has for you. But that's what he wants, and that's what he'll do for us. Did it for me. I know he does it for you as well. And we are on a track now to really be good kingdom stewards of whatever resources he is going to entrust to us. And I really do believe it's going to be in the millions of dollars, because our God is not cheap. He's not a cheap God. Any time you read the scriptures and it talks about he owns the cattle on 1,000 hills and the gold and the silver are his, and everything, right? He's not cheap.
Hey, when you were talking about the little, in that same parable, it says that those who are not responsible with the little, that even whatever they have will be taken away from them.
Yes.
And given to those who do have.
Yeah.
In other words, if I'm just wasting and it's not just about money, it's about what I do with my time, my gifting.
Right. Yeah.
But a big issue is money. So if I'm just wasting it, then why would God keep giving me? He's going to give more. See, and I remember years ago, that was me. When I first got saved.
Yeah.
I didn't have an idea about this. So to me, I need something, I just get out the credit card.
Yes.
I didn't have any sense about being responsible. And I would see other people getting blessed all around me in the church. Some people get a new car, and I'm driving this car like Fred Flintstone, where you want to stop, you got to stick your foot out.
Oh, no.
Other people getting these new cars where you turn the key, the car starts. You step on the brake, the car starts. Those are good, right?
Yeah.
And I was getting upset. I said, but God loves these people more than me.
Right.
They're getting new apartments. They're able to go out to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Until I finally learned the lesson that I wasn't being faithful in the little, and I was wasting whatever I did have.
Okay.
It's like having holes in my pocket. Whatever I put in it, it's like it's just going through a hole.
Yeah.
Until I learned, I actually, took a class. There was a financial advisor at the time in the church, and I took a class with her, and
Mm-hmm.
I met with her, and started to get things in order. And that's when things started to turn around. When I learned to give, when I learned, well, if you don't have the money, you don't buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. You bring up the credit card stuff, and that's another characteristic of a poverty spirit is that, I just want what I want now. It's an instant gratification thing. Um, because when you have a poverty spirit, it's like you feel like you're being denied, as you just said, all those good things that you see other people having. So, well, I deserve something, so I'm going to just, use my credit card, or I'm going to take my tax refund, and just going to blow it on a big screen TV or something, that I've wanted that I haven't been able to get. And there's no thought for, well, what is the future supposed to look like? How do I prepare for a future where I won't be in this state of poverty? And it can only come by learning how to steward what is put into your hand in a way that it multiplies. Just as we see here in Matthew 25, these guys went out and they multiplied, what they were given. And, I love the fact that he doesn't describe what they actually did. That leaves it wide open. Whatever kinds of endeavors that we're able to engage in that have that potential to bring multiplication into the kingdom, we should go for it. It's all good. I love that.
I think it says in Ecclesiastes, money answers all things.
Well, isn't that what they used to say in the commercials? Money talks, nobody walks.
Oh yeah, and it's true that so many of the things I have a vision for in ministry, require money. I want to do a class. Well, you have to have the money to have a place to do it.
Yeah.
You want to go travel to the nations, you got to buy tickets.
Yeah.
You want to have people on the staff, you got to pay them. So there's so much, and to me, the provision of heaven is already in place, but now I got to believe for it, number one, and then those two things, and then be faithful with what I do have. And that's where the multiplication comes.
Yeah, it's true. The poverty mentality is one in which you always feel like you're a victim, right? It's this idea that, nobody's treating me fairly. I'm not getting a fair shake, whether it's at work or wherever.
And people with money are all crooks. Don't forget that.
Don't forget that as well. But in that kind of a mindset as a victim, where you really feel like you're a victim, and maybe you feel like you're jinxed or you're cursed or whatever kind of thoughts you're having concerning why you are in your current financial situation, right? That posture, first of all, it negates the provision of God for your life, because it makes him out to be someone who's unfair. God, why did you let this happen? How could you let me, be in this situation where I don't have enough and I'm always barely getting by? All these kinds of ideas and thoughts where now all of a sudden it's God's fault, when, as we've taught, as we've mentioned, he's already provided. He's already promised everything that we need. We lack nothing as his children. So we've got to, break free of that, basically repent of this victim mentality that the poverty spirit just surrounds us with, so that we can begin to agree with what he's promised, with what he's said about his provision for our lives. And so that's just a huge understanding that, I am his child. I am a son. I'm a daughter of the King of Kings, the one who owns it all. I'm not, this poor, victimized person that's unable to do anything about my life. I was watching an interview the other day with Morgan Freeman, the actor, and this, I don't know, there was some guy that was interviewing him, and the interviewer was asking Morgan about, what his thoughts were on the inequalities and the injustices that have kept people, from really achieving things and having a better life. And I was shocked. Morgan basically, schooled that young man by telling him that there are opportunities at every turn. It's just a question of, will you position yourself to look for them and take advantage of them? And I was so blessed to hear him, basically echoing the truth of Scripture here when he was saying that you are not relegated to victimhood for your whole life unless you allow that. And that was really the gist of what he was saying, is that people that are in that frame of mind are there because they won't break free of it. They're choosing not to look up and see, well, what has God provided? What are his promises for me? And what are the opportunities that he's bringing my way? If I'm constantly looking down, how can I be seeing all the things that are there that the Lord has for me? And that's, I don't know, that's such a powerful truth that I want people to understand. And so that they don't continue to be deceived by the enemy to thinking that, oh, woe is me, there's nothing I can do, I'm just poor, helpless person in this thing, all these forces are arrayed against me. Man, that is such a lie. Such a lie. If you're a Christian, man, you're a son or daughter of the King. You have authority, you have a calling, you have significance. It's like, come on. If I could shake you, I would.
I've done a lot, among the poor.
Yeah.
And what they say, a lot of times with Christians, it starts in the home from childhood.
Yeah.
That, kids learn, this is who we are.
Yeah.
We got to depend on the government, or we're never going to have anything. There's no impartation of an expectation of the greatness in you.
Yeah.
That one day you can, you're going to be something. It's all, here's how to beat the system. There's so much of that, because that's a generational thing. Yeah. In poverty. Mm-hmm. That, a lot of the reason why people don't look up is because that's all they've learned from a young age. Yeah. People like us, we don't get anywhere. Yeah. Yeah. And those people, and there is a lot of inequality, and there is a lot of obstacles against people, mm-hmm. Who are born in those situations. Yeah. I'm not minimizing that. Mm-hmm. But as you said, that's true in the world. Yeah. But in God, he's not a respecter of persons. He'll take the poorest people and open doors. I remember I went to Mexico and poverty here is nothing compared to poverty there. Right? Oh my goodness. People have no water, no electricity. Yeah. I went to homes where people have a cement floor with kids crawling around with sharp things sticking out of the floor. Yeah. And yet we're able to prophesy to them, their destiny, the greatness in them, things that God has for them. Yeah. But it's all, it's found in Jesus. In the world, it's very hard to overcome all these obstacles. But God makes a way through it. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. I have similar experiences as well. Going into the favelas in Brazil, where people basically find a patch of land on the hillside and put up a tarp until they can get the money to start building walls for their home. And it's just, God's will for them is no different than for any one of us, that he wants everyone to prosper and to,
to live a life of just being fully provided for. That's his heart. Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of the focus is on those rich people. It's all their fault. And and whether that's true or not doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is, I'm not going to focus on whose fault it is. I have to believe that if God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, then I must own at least one, right?
There you go. That's good.
And I've seen that. I've seen people take hold of God, and really prosper, regardless of the circumstances it came from.
Sure.
I've seen people come through all kinds of impossible odds because they took God at His word, and they did what they had to do. They believed. They had no money, and parents will say, people like us don't go to college.
Yeah.
College? No, that's not us. I've seen people not go or do what they need to do because of what their family tells them. That's for those people. People like us, we're not college people.
Wow.
And you get stuck in this thing, and that's why it's so important to break through a lot of these generational issues like the fields deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another belief that that's really amplified here in this, this poverty mentality, and it has to do with something called zero sum. And this is an idea that people have, that because there are all these people that have wealth and riches, that it somehow diminishes the availability for me and you. Well, they have it all, right? So it's a zero sum game. In other words, because we have folks that have billions of dollars now. Used to be millionaires, but now people are billionaires.
Yeah, millionaires are poor now. You didn't even buy a house and all.
Oh my God. Well, no, that's only if you're in California. But this idea that because these people, the top 1% are so blessed, it means that there's not enough for the rest of us. And that is simply not true. This is not a pie where some people, get a big piece of it, and whatever's left over, we all got to divide. No, the way God designed the economy, the way God designed our life here on earth, is that there is a constant abundance that's available if you know where to look for it, if you know how to access it. And that's where a lot of people get tripped up. They won't go looking for the abundance that God has hidden for them or provided for them. It's like, this is not exactly the interpretation of it, but I always think about the parable where Jesus talked about a guy who was walking through a field, stumbles over a treasure chest, goes and buys the whole field so he can get the treasure. Well, that's talking about having the treasure of salvation and knowing God and all of that. But that's still, there's still an application of that to this principle, that if you simply look, you're going to find the abundance that God has already built into our existence here on the earth. Because listen, again, He's a good Father. He would never create a scenario where people would be incapable, right? When He created Adam and Eve, what did He do? The first thing He did was to declare a blessing over them. He blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, and rule. And He wasn't simply talking to Adam and Eve. He was talking to the human race that was to come forth from them. So there is this constant thing that abundance is the heart of the Father for every single person. And I know that it doesn't happen for every single person, but I also have to believe that it breaks His heart that there's still so many that never have the opportunity to experience what He truly wanted for them from the beginning. But that's His heart.
And again, it's the balance in Scripture. It's not the the focus of our faith is wealth. So if anybody's watching and thinking, oh, these are the guys that, their whole focus is on worldly wealth, that's not what we're saying.
Not at all.
So what we're saying is that God wants to give us resources in order to advance the kingdom, and
right.
in order to do what we're called to do, to reach our destiny, to move forth the next generation.
Right.
There's a lot of things, but if you're poor all the time, you always have to be focused on, my main focus now is how am I going to pay my bills? And then I've seen people with powerful ministries, and now that their focus became on, lack, what they lack, right. And they give it all up, and they work 5, 6 days a week, and there's no time anymore to serve the Lord. There's no time for it.
Right. Sure.
And there are circumstances where you have to do that. I know, right. We're not talking about dire things where somebody, dies in the family who was the provider, or a spouse leaves the other person with no money, or right. Someone stops paying child support. We're not talking about those extreme things where now you're in a desperate situation.
Yeah.
But in general, it's the fear that will cause us to back off of our destiny and put our focus on how are we going to get through the next week.
Yeah, I agree. I think that all of us have to settle the issue when it comes to money. We cannot escape the need for money in the world. I mean, you can't, unless you want to go, live somewhere in isolation and grow your own crops and, build your log cabin and whatever. I mean, who's going to do that? So, if you're in the normal flow of life, we have to have money. But the issue for us is, are we serving money, or is money serving us? And for me, that had to be one of the greatest revelations that I ever got from the scriptures, was the idea that money is simply a tool that we can use for kingdom purposes. I'm no different than anybody else. I was wanting money. I wanted to have a higher salary. I wanted to go after, the bonuses and the promotion and all those things, because it's all about getting a bigger salary, getting a bigger paycheck, and all, just getting more money. And that mentality of chasing after money, of serving money, is not the mindset of a kingdom steward or a kingdom manager. We've got to, get free of that, recognizing that all our needs are met, that we're going to have everything that we need, so that we're able then to look at money as a tool that we are given the opportunity to use for the kingdom. And I think when we begin to make that shift, right, where now money's not controlling me, I'm controlling the money. I'm telling money what it's going to do for me and for the kingdom, instead of me constantly feeling I have to chase after, I got to get another part-time job, I got to get this and that. And I understand, as you said, that there are, situations and emergencies where sometimes it's necessary to take that route, but that's not, I don't believe that is the best that the Lord has for us. And that if we'll really look to him, ask him, partner with him, he's going to show us where the provision is, in such a way that it's not going to prevent us from doing what he wants us to, right? Another manifestation of this is when I hear people telling me that they're moving to another part of the country because they can get a job with a better salary there. Now, I'm not saying that God doesn't do that, but I hear it so often. It's clear that people are simply making these major decisions about where they're going to live based simply on the size of the paycheck that they will get when they get to that new place. Instead of, okay, God, where have you called me to serve? Where have you called me to do what you've created me to do. Who am I called to serve? That's a geographic issue. And when you know where you're called and you recognize that, you move into that, God has to provide. He would be so unjust to call you to a particular area, such as, by the way, the tri-state area here of New York, one of the most expensive areas of the country, right? That if you're called here, God has to provide for you here. And you have the same testimony as well of that.
I have the testimony of God providing. That's right. Because back in 2005, I left a ministry where I had all my needs met. Mm-hmm. And I had a salary. I had a retirement account.
Sure.
And I had a car that I was given to drive with the insurance paid and the gas paid.
Woo.
But I was totally miserable, and I went to an apostle who was a true apostle, mm-hmm. and he told me, well, life is more than a paycheck. You can't just stay stuck in a place where God's calling you out of just for the money.
Yeah.
And I totally left by faith. And that was 13 years ago, and I'm still going. And when I left, I had no speaking engagements. Nobody knew me.
Yeah.
No prophetic retreat, no dreams network. I didn't know Scott, so I could call him up every week to borrow $100.
Wow, I had no idea. What's the interest rate on that?
So it's been by faith, the last 13 years. And I'm not saying I haven't had a lot of trepidation, sleepless nights.
Sure.
But whatever it is, God has brought me through. I'm still standing. I'm still going.
Amen.
But you opened a can of worms before that's going to get me in trouble about people ministering, just instead people going where the wealth is rather than where God's called them.
Yep.
Because I see so many ministries bypass New York. I'm talking about prophetic ministries, the big time ministries. Some of them must be called to go into the places of poverty in New York City. But instead, I just see people follow the wealth. They follow the trail, the churches that can pay their fee.
Yeah.
That can't be right. That doesn't sound like the book of Acts to me.
No.
The true book of Acts is I'm going to go where God says to go. If there's no faith, it looks like there's no money. I'm always told that, well, ministries don't want to come to New York because it costs too much to stay at a hotel, and they can go out, elsewhere in the surrounding part.
Yep.
Where they can do it much cheaper and let people travel there. I heard one big ministry, he said, well, I don't have to go to New York City. God told me if I go to Long Island and New Jersey, he'll take care of the rest. But where's the sacrifice? Where's the people saying, I'm going to go pay the price? I'm just have a heart for these people if they don't meet my fee every time. I understand with a big ministry, that means there's a staff, there's big expenses.
Sure.
I'm aware of all that.
Yeah.
But there's got to be at least some times where people say, I'm going to go to that little church in the middle of nowhere where God sent me, where there's 10 people, just to speak life into their potential.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen that through the years. And most people who in New York City who have a desire to go to ministry, right away they get their focus is on let's get out of here. Let's go where the ministry's easy, where I can get a salary and with a small cost of living, and I don't have to pay taxes in Florida.
Yep.
That just can't be the mindset anymore.
Well, I agree, and I'm thankful that I think the Lord is really challenging, many of us in this time to re-examine our thinking on that and come into alignment with what He's after. God is geographical. You just look through scriptures and you can see where He has led over and over again people into places and cities and regions and whatnot, because he wanted them there to announce his word, his will, his kingdom, on so many levels. I do want, before we finish tonight, I do want to bring up, I think, one of the most important portions of scripture for anyone that's looking to overcome a poverty spirit. You have to understand what's being written in 2 Corinthians 8 and 9, because it is the most detailed, definitive teaching that we have in the New Covenant on finances and giving and all of that. And Paul in the 9th chapter, he's talking about this generous heart, this generous spirit of the Macedonians. And in verse 6, he says that he who sows sparingly shall also reap sparingly. He who sows bountifully shall also reap bountifully. And so the idea of stewardship is just that, is that I'm managing resources that God has entrusted to me, but I don't own them. This is what we as New Covenant believers need to understand, is that we're being given a responsibility to manage his resources for his purposes. That means, okay, Papa, you want me to what? You want me to give into this? And so that's the thing. We've got to come into that kind of a mentality so that we can be entrusted with the more, okay? And he says in verse 7, let each one do just as he has purposed in his heart, not grudgingly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. So we don't believe that it's right in any way for people to try to coerce or manipulate you to give a certain amount of money into any kind of an endeavor. That's wrong. But it's really between each person and God. I was smacked in the face today by someone I love, because I was questioning why they were, sowing so much into our ministry. And, that was the point that was made to me. It's between me and God. And I was like, you're absolutely right. Forgive me. So, but here's the thing. I want to read this verse 8. Actually, verses 8 through 11. Because this is the key right here. If you will grab hold of this, believe it, and declare it, and whatever you need to do, right? It says, God is able to make all grace abound to you, that always having all sufficiency in everything, you may have an abundance for every good deed. That's talking about having over and above whatever your normal expenses are, so that if something comes up that needs to be done, or someplace you need to go, no problem. I've got that. The Lord has provided, and I'm able to do it. I'm free. Listen, I'm longing to get to that place. We're not quite there just yet. As it is written, he scattered abroad, he gave to the poor, his righteousness abides forever. Now, he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase the harvest of your righteousness. You will be enriched in everything for all liberality, which through us is producing thanksgiving to God. So it's like God wants to enrich us so that we have this abundance to release into whatever it is that he's called us to do. So be encouraged, folks. This is the will of God. This is the way the kingdom operates. And if we get in line with that, align our hearts and minds with what he's after, sky's the limit. Sky's the limit. I'll give you the last word, my friend.
Okay, there were two windmills standing next to each other. One windmill said, "What kind of music do you like?" The other windmill said, "I'm a big metal fan."
A big metal fan. Wow, I'm sorry I asked. Well, with that bit of profundity, we hesitatingly must leave you.
I see by the old clock on the wall that it's about time to
Yes, indeed.
wrap it up.
And it couldn't come soon enough. Hey, listen, we hope this has been helpful for you. If you have any questions or would like to have us, talk about other aspects of this or really anything else, you can send us an email at thedreamsnetwork.tv@gmail.com, thedreamsnetwork.tv@gmail.com, or you can call Gary. He'll talk to you. All right. Hey, Dreams
Go ahead, especially about money.
Oh, I'm telling you. All right, Dream Interpretation Live is coming your way momentarily. So hang on for that. And we look forward to seeing you again next week at this time. So you be blessed.